And good morning and welcome to Office Hours. It's good to have you all here. I'm Bill Davis. I'm sitting in for Alex this morning. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. This is our daily global conversation about digital production, everything having to do with that, technology, processes. We've been gathering here every single morning for the past 777 straight days. So it's a lucky day, we hope. Find out more about what we do at Office Hours. If you want more information, go to officehours.global on the web. This week, today, 2 hours of Q&A. If you had the old billboard up and it said synth, we're delighted that Karl Asmussen is here, so he can answer any of those questions you might toss in as well. But generally, 2 hours of regular Q&A. Wednesday, we're planning for NAMM and Cinegear, which are two shows that are coming up in Los Angeles, and we're hoping to cover them much as we did NAB. So keep tuned for that. On Wednesday, we're talking about WWDC, the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference, and so we'll be talking about whatever coverage we're going to be doing and how we're going to approach that. On Friday, we're excited because Andy Carluccio, our dear friend who is now with Zoom but had spent a lot of time with his company Liminal, here on the show talking about ways to leverage Zoom in the back end. Saturday, as always, is the long day where we talk through more topics. At 7 a.m., it's general questions. The keynote tips happen at 8. I believe EDU Saturdays, or the education hour, will be here as normal. That is not streamed, but for those of you in the education community, it's a great place to hang out. And on Sunday, as Alex likes to say, it's introspection day, a little more laid back and a little more general discussion about maybe philosophy and production questions that aren't quite so technical. But it's up to you guys. And so are our questions today. I get to toss things to Mitch now, and we're going to start the regular show. Welcome.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. The first question comes from David Brady in New York City. I'm old school and still use RealVNC for my remote access to Windows, OS X, and Linux. What are some of the advantages of Parsec? Give me the elevator pitch. Thank you.
And whoops, sorry about that. And we're going to start out with John Wallace and then go immediately to Guy Cochran. John, you're up.
Yeah, so really what you're looking at for Ultra VNC versus Parsec. Parsec's great for like outside, securely remote desktop over the internet. VNC is great for internal if you're just using your local network. But if you want to access remotely, I definitely recommend using some sort of third party to get that connectivity. It's going to be a lot more secure than just poking holes in your firewall and hoping no one else knocks on the door.
Okay, and I'm seeing myself on that. I wonder if the feed has gotten stuck here somehow. Guy Cochran's up next, though. Let's see if we can get to Guy's picture.
Yeah, so when you're looking at something like Parsec, especially with the frame rates and doing some of the work that we do on a remote basis, especially in the cloud, we're taking over cloud instances that we're using vMix, and so we want to see that color depth and that frame rate. And so if you're using some of the old school apps, I mean, they work fine for text and for dragging folders around and whatnot. But when you start cutting images, it's a beautiful thing to use. Not just Parsec, but there's other ones. Nice DCV if you're using Amazon. Jeff Keithley uses TeamViewer, and that one feels old school as well. So if you've used Parsec and then you jump over to TeamViewer, you're like, geez, this is like feels ancient. The other thing you get is 4K resolution, multi-monitor support. You can also do things like a Wacom tablet. So I can plug in my tablet. I have a 24-inch Cintiq, and I can control that thing. AWS. I can do After Effects work. I can do drawing, and it feels like I'm there. So that's the biggest thing. Is it feels like you're there with high resolution, big images.
Excellent. Hopefully that took care of everything you're looking for, David. Let's move to the next question.
Werner in Warsaw, Poland, got a great deal on an ATEM Extreme, but had an ATEM Mini Pro already as an online trainer and live stream dabbler. I might have more ATEM than I can handle. What would you recommend doing with the Mini Pro? Sell it or keep it?
Jeffrey Powers is going to start us off.
I'm always a person that likes to pay it forward. So for me, it's I look for somebody that is needing something like that and then sending it their way, maybe even at a discount for that. That way, especially if there's somebody in town that is struggling on trying to get that get their system set up. It's a nice way to do that.
And John.
I'd recommend keeping it as a backup if it's something that is critical to your setup. If you can't function without that, then always having a backup is going to be really critical. And obviously, if you can't afford to pay for it, that'd be great. But depending on how important it is to you and your workflow, you may want to keep it.
And Sky had some thoughts. Sky?
I just wanted to throw in the education component, that if there's a system that you could help support and they could use that tool. But again, sometimes we are giving away our old stuff to education and it's out of date and out of use. But that's a good piece of equipment that in the right hands has a lot of value. And I'll bet you there's some education people that could bring that to value, to life.
Absolutely. Moving on. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asked, office hour space was an example of a challenge we set and achieved as a community. What should be the next and even more challenging?
Ooh, time for the panel to think about things that might be fun to do in the same. We're going to start with Jeffrey Powers here.
Well, first of all, office hours space, or OH space, is not done yet. That's for sure. So we've got we're working on some stuff as just keep tuned on that. But there's a lot of great shows. And Douglas, what do you suggest that we do? I think that's the bigger question. Is because I know you've asked this already. What do you want us to do?
That's one of the most fun things about office hours, is that producers, which is what our term for the audience here, do often drive the content of the shows through the questions and suggestions for things like this. Sky's going to weigh in, and then Mitchell. So Sky, take it away.
Well, again, it's the talent and resources. I work on the TQR, the time, quality, and resources of any event or product. And consequently, Douglas, I did ask this question on Sunday as well, or we collaborated on this concept. And yes, the NAM and the Cinegear concept is coming up. We're working on a thing called the big event process, or coming up with a good name for that. But I was also challenged by Alex when he says, how about we do small events? And consequently, to Jeffrey's point, what could be a small thing done well, and then it could be flow into a bigger event system. So I like the idea of asking Douglas, what do you want to do?
Mitchell?
Nuclear fusion.
That's a stretch goal. There you go. Let's move on to John Preto.
I'll sign up for that one. I want to break the paradigm. We're all sitting in front of devices that are interactive and they're lean forward. It's lean forward and not lean back. Doing a show to me is boring. I watch that on TV. I want to be involved in a show that's interactive, that the audience can participate in. And that's the kind of show that I want to be a part of. I don't want to push content out to an audience. That's so 50 years ago.
Fascinating. I will say that there's also behind the scenes in office hours a lot of initiatives that you can get involved with that are kind of community building things. I'm thinking of the office hours band, the remotes. That's been going for quite a long time. So definitely look around the website, officehours.global. Definitely, if you haven't joined the Discord, you should really take advantage of that, because a lot of these conversations that we have here happen not only in after hours, which is our live online 24-hour-a-day service, but the Discord, which is a more permanent thing, has a lot of people talking about a lot of initiatives, and that's where a lot of these ideas bubble up from. So become involved with the two of those. So let's pop to the next question.
And it's one for me, and I'm asking, what entry-level sound devices MixPre has Dante and Noise Assist?
We're starting with John Wallace here.
From what I read on the website, it looks like the 888 is the lowest model with Dante in it. Offers 16 channels of Dante to be used. It's a nice, really small form factor, but definitely a little pricey.
And Guy.
Yeah, that's correct. The 888's the one. But if you just need a couple channels, and I know that you already have some of these things, if I could find where I just put mine, there it is, right on my lap. Just with a MixPre 10, you get XLR outs. So they're not full size, they're the little ones, but then you can add on one of these Dante Avio 2 channel analog output adapters, and this will give you 2 channels, so at least you get your mix out, and that's a really inexpensive way, because you're under $2,000 as opposed to stepping up to what I think it's about 8,000. I have one of those in stock in my warehouse. If you need an 888, it's ready to ship today.
Mitchell Hill's next.
How about a MixPre 3 and a couple of Dante Avios? I have some here, but I'm actually waiting from you for a digital one. So thank you, Guy.
All right. We're going to go to the next one, but I'm going to give you a warning up front now. This panel is crushing it. We're blasting through with really good answers, a lot of things. So for those of you who are our producers, this is an excellent day to put your questions in. We've got 2 full hours to cover, and we can babble on if we need to. But I love the fact that we're taking care of a lot of people very quickly. So get more questions in if you'd like to hear the answers from the panel, and let's move on to the next question.
Thank you, Bill. Jonas Ischer from Karlsruhe, Germany. He asked, what do you use for a reliable presentation remote on stage? Perfect Cue, MasterCue, or something else?
John Wallace has a thought.
The Perfect Cue stuff is really, really great. I got my first time to use ours this past week. We had an event in a sports complex, and the original clicker that the event provider did was some Logitech one. Wasn't working well at all. We busted out the Perfect Cue, worked really great. It was our first time really using it. Love the ability to control 2 PCs with 1 click for redundancy. I would definitely recommend that.
I know Alex, who hosts the show most often, does a ton of stage presentation work, and he is a big fan of, I believe it's the Perfect Cue, says he just wouldn't use anything else. So that gets a lot of traction here on the show. Let's move on to the next thing.
Dave Burke from Alexandria, Virginia. Can you recommend a consumer or professional prosumer level camera and rig for smooth handheld pans and tilts for things like travel videos?
Karl's going to start us off here.
So if you're doing travel videos, I would say take the best video camera you have, which is going to be an iPhone. It has 3 lenses, and just take a DJI. So DJI OM5 is a current one. You can get the 4 second-hand, pretty good price. You can do kind of pre-programmed like pans in this, so with the controller, and you can actually attach this to a tripod as well. So on the bottom of the DJI is actually a quarter 20. So you can actually put on top of a quarter 20, lock it, and actually do pans as well. And you can do tilt. So this is probably the best system with the best video camera for travel, which is the iPhone. I think it's not the best photography camera, but it's definitely the best video camera.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, and the thing, it's not about just having the camera. It's having the camera and having the head or a 3-axis gimbal that's going to be able to do the panning. If you wanted to do something that's just the camera, then you get something like the the Blackmagic 12K, and then you shoot in 12K, and then you do it in post to do all your smooth pans, and of course there would have to be smaller than 12K, so you'd get like a 4K video. You could do a lot with that. But yeah, I use Sony. That's one of my go-tos when it comes to getting high-end 4K video, and then something with a 3-axis gimbal from DJI or Zhiyun or something like that. That'll work really well for those pans.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I like the GH6 with the 12 to 40 or the 12 to 35. So then you're getting double image stabilization. You're getting in-body image stabilization, and you're getting, or an older GH5 that, yeah, because it's the same thing. You'll be amazed at how smoothly you can get these walking shots or these shots that might appear bumpy on a normal video camera. The new iPhone, it also has great stabilization. So I like Karl's recommendation because you have it with you. I just like having storage. Like, I made a mistake of not buying the biggest iPhone. I bought like the 512, and so I'm constantly filling that thing up and having to dump stuff. So I like the ability to add SD cards, pull them out, buy more if I need more, and then battery life. That's the other thing to pay attention to if you're traveling. So if you're going with the iPhone, you get some kind of Anchor or big old power brick. Otherwise, lots of GH5 or GH6 batteries, and that's my recommendation.
So when I was coming up in the video industry, there used to be 2 general divisions in the world. There was EFP and ENG. EFP is electronic field production, ENG electronic news gathering. Most of the shooters that I worked with for 20 years fell into one of those 2 camps. Either it was somebody who was used to going out and making a video with a script. Those were the electronic field production people. And then there were people who kind of were run and gun artists who would cover breaking news or anything else that was happening in real time. I have to say that I think there's use for both of these approaches that have been talked about here. If you're going to be making content and you know what you're going to be shooting, these larger cameras, the DSLRs, the Blackmagic cinema cameras and things like that are fabulous. They give you a tremendous amount of control. The way you can build them out with cages and video assists and other things, it's worth its weight in gold in that kind of circumstance. If you're mostly doing ENG kind of stuff, or the kind of videos these days that I'm getting asked more and more for from my clients, then that really agile small iPhone on a stabilizer rig has turned out to be transformative for me. I've shot 4 of them in the last 2.5 months for clients, and I came out of the first time I really seriously used the iPhone. I put it on the top of a monopod, and I used its internal stabilization and cabrissure. I think I just shot the first one at 1920 1080, and I was shocked at how many usable shots I came out with from coverage of that event. I think I came out with over 200 usable clips to build the video out of, which was fabulous. The next time I went out, I added my DJI Osmo 4 to it for extra stabilization, and I came out with slightly fewer clips, but they were more stable and better from the point of view of a cinematographer. So I just think that there's a transformation happening. I think it's tools for the kind of job you're doing. If you want to do a lot of fast action, kind of modern, your shots are a second, half a second, 2 seconds max maybe, and you want a lot of energy to it, the iPhone rig allowed me to get a lot more out of an event than the old set up a shot and take the shot. But if I was being paid to create video programs for a corporation or something and it was going to last the test of time, I would immediately go back to my Blackmagic 6K and visualize and execute the shots one by one. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, the approach you take. We've got a couple more comments, Mitchell Hill, and then Sky Gleason's back in.
Yeah, you can go old school and use a Steadicam Junior, which was invented by Garrett Brown, the original inventor of the giant Steadicam. It has no moving parts other than the pivot that's on it.
And Sky Gleason.
I also started out with the GH3, the Lumix camera, and went overseas with that because it had a longer battery life than at the time. It was the DSLR, the Canon 5D was the popular cool new DSLR at the time. But the Lumix had a flip out monitor, which I found very convenient because then you could take different perspectives and angles and be able to see what you're filming. It had a longer battery life, and it also had a longer recording time than the early 5D Canon. Now, love the lens that you can modify and adapt onto the I love the Canon lenses, but now that I do have the iPhone 13, the flexibility of stop motion, of time lapse, of durability, the stability, these are other concepts that if you're going to be traveling, maybe you want to do the sunset over 6 hours or something like that, or a sunrise. And those are things that you want to keep in mind in watching travel shows and going, how did they do that? Do you really want to put your $1,000 camera right next to the wheel of the rickshaw? I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Those are questions to ask.
Yeah, I think there's all of that's valid. Plus the third gig that I shot with this was for a Humane Society fundraiser. And so I knew I wanted to get down amongst the dogs a lot. And the computational photography and what they're building into the phones these days that I don't find on the Blackmagics and things like that is when my phone was hooked to the monopod and I flipped it 180, the computational video would reflip that back so I'd get decent framed shots upright that I didn't have to flip, and I could go down to the level of dogs and have fun with shots right nose to nose and then flip it back up and everything would turn over. That plus I just think they've really nailed the color science of those phones in a ever-changing, I'm outdoors, I'm indoors. The intelligence behind those are stunning me. But again, as I said, horses for courses.
That's going to be your new band name, Bill.
What?
Level of Dogs.
Well, doggy cam shots are fun when you're a bunch of pack of dogs. We had a couple. There was a team for this walk brought out, I think it was 7 or 8 golden retrievers on leashes, all run by one person. It was just fun to watch them going by. And then we had the little tiny dogs, and getting nose to nose with them those are the kind of shots that when you're doing something for a pet oriented charity, people just love seeing animals. So you just want to get as many shots of as many cute pups as you possibly can, and it was fun to shoot it. That was a great gig. All right, we've been on this for a while. I know we got a few more questions in now, so let's move on to the next one.
And it's from panelist Sky Gleason, right here on the panel. Seattle, Washington is where he's from, and his question is: TJ Asher is coming to Seattle this Friday, and would the office hours Pacific Northwest folks meet at Nigel's suggested restaurant? If so, what time?
Ooh, it's an IRL meet. Sky, what tell us about this?
Nigel recommended this amazing dim sum location that apparently is rated at the above the 5-star. I don't know. It's rated way up there. And Guy, are you in for dim sum on Friday?
I'm game, but 5-star. What the heck are you guys dragging me into? We're going to run up $1,000 bill.
No, it's not. It's reasonable. It's just the taste is amazing.
All right, now let's get serious about this. Who's bringing the Zoom camera, and how are we virtualizing this for the rest of the group?
No. Well, TJ, because he's the only one who knows how to run it. But if that's a thing, I ask it on Sunday, but obviously I wanted to make sure that those that are in the Pacific Northwest that are interested, and there's Guy, you're in the Pacific Northwest.
I will be there. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
What time? Because I think we should make reservations. So
6 or 7 sounds good to me. Seattle traffic is going to be a nightmare downtown, but it's a Friday. We'll see.
Why do I suspect somebody's out there arranging a plane ticket right now? Anyway, that's one of the magic of office hours is community building. And this has been so much fun when I went out to the office hours space launch, just to be able to see people that I had spent hundreds and hundreds of hours with on this program. To be able to give them a hug and see them in person was a great thing. So I applaud you guys doing that. Mitchell has something he wants to say about it before we finish.
I heard this rumor that Nigel, hold on, that's Nigel right now. Hold on just a second. No, I don't need a extended warranty. Sorry about that. I heard that Nigel occasionally orders a round of drinks and then disappears.
Well, you'll have to report back later. We're going to move on to the next question.
All right, it's from Sky again. Karl Asmussen, I'm doing a documentary film about the Galloping Goumet. Where could you get a hold of historic videos and photos of Graham Kerr in Sydney, Australia from the 1960s?
Ooh, Karl, you've been challenged. What's up?
So there is a repository here in Australia. So it's the National Film and Sound Archive. So you can just go onto the site. So you can just put that into Google. You'll come up and you can search that collection. It's got over 3 million items on there. Pretty much this is funded by the federal government, and they've archived nearly every unique piece of film, and like you name it, they've got it in there pretty much, like right up until modern times as well. But yeah, it's got a really good search function. You won't be able to find the stuff that easily via Google, so you do have to go into the database itself and just search in the database, but that should help.
There's a solution for you right there.
Did you put that in? Where did you put that link somewhere?
I'll put it in Meccana for you.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Moving on to the next question.
Paul Wahus in Austin, Texas. What's a great portable DJ setup under $1,000 in the different categories: CD records, 2 touchpads, and plain console?
Karl wants to weigh in.
So the best one probably is the 707, which has come out from Roland. So it supports Serato. So Serato is a third party that actually allows you to use turntables, CDs. It comes with Serato Pro DJ, which is a computer-based one. So if you want to run from a computer, music from a computer, you can actually control music from a computer with this controller. You can, of course, put the music on the controller itself. But you can get the other software that's available from Serato that allows you to control physical decks, so physical CD decks and physical turntables as well. And that can all be controlled from the actual Roland unit itself. So you can actually control all that kind of stuff. It's pretty good.
So that's right on target at $1,000 overall. I wonder if he means, does he want the CDs or records, the content as well? I mean, everything else is in there.
Well, so the Serato Pro DJ that comes with this allows you to put your DJs into your computer, and you load up you put your CDs in your computer. So you take all your CDs, put them in your computer into a WAV format, and it can control it with the software. So for $1,000, you can control all your CDs as long as you import them into your computer. If you want to actually have CD decks and turntables, this unit will support it as well with Serato as well. So this is pretty much the best unit you can get for that kind of price. That will deal with physical units like a turntable and CDs, and also digital on the computer, which comes with it. The license comes with it.
Very cool. Mitchell Hill has a thought.
Doesn't the Serato allow you to hook up a turntable that has a time code on it so you can sit there and scratch
That's right.
on the
So
turntable?
it's a DVS Pro. Yeah, so the DVS is an optional add-on if you want to do that, but it does come with the Pro DJ, which is a computer-based Serato.
So if you've got an old Technics 1200 Mark II sitting around, you're in business. All right, let's go on to the next question.
The next one is from me again. Can you share a Thunderbolt hub across 2 Macs?
Jeffrey Powers is going to start us.
So share as in hooking up to 2 different computers at the exact same time? No, you cannot do that. But you can undock and then plug it into the other computer and run it from there. I highly suggest that you do the undock process if you do that. And of course, every time you unplug Thunderbolt cable and plug it in, you're kind of working on its life a little bit as it's going from one computer to the next. But yeah, you should be able to move it between the 2, but not at the same time.
Mitchell?
It was me musing about that, and I was wondering what would actually happen if you did that.
So, well,
most likely what would happen is the electronics inside will say no, and then it'll just turn it down. But it really depends on the dock. I mean, if you got like the OWC or something like that, it will probably notice that it's plugged into 2 and either go one or the other, but it won't do it both at the same time. But there are some docks that might just decide, hey, we're done, and boom.
Is the Thunderbolt protocol is pretty bi-directional. I'm wondering, there's no mechanical big switch that has A and B that you could use to switch back and forth, and would it have to sync up and think about it for a minute? So it might be impractical for this, but I just wonder if there's anything
it's more
simple.
than just the Thunderbolt dock. It's about what you have plugged into the Thunderbolt dock. You can't take, like, for instance, you can't take a hard drive and you can't plug it into 2 computers. That's the same process here. So now you've got that hard drive in a dock, it's still going to get confused which computer it goes to. So yeah, you'd end up with data corruption. You'd end up with, if it did connect to both computers, you'd run into more hassles than help.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the next question.
And it's from James Fusleen in Minneapolis, Minnesota. One of my synths made it easy to record step and live sequencing instead of using a step sequencing MIDI controller. Am I missing something not using the MIDI controller, Roland JDXI versus Arturia Keystep?
Karl's going to take on this one.
So I own the JDXI. It has a pretty incredible synth engine in it, and it also has a really cool synth sequencer. So the sequencer is a TR sequencer. It's also a recording sequencer, and it's also a step sequencer, and it's also another version of sequencer in as well, which is kind of a copy and delete. So it gives you every kind of different way of sequencing, which means you can just play live into it. You can program it like a TR-808, and you can program it like a TR-909. So if you know those kind of products, there's different ways of programming it. And Arturia is just a controller. It does have a built-in sequencer, but all it's doing is sending a command to your synthesizer saying, play this note now for this long. Whereas the JDXI actually has a sequencer that has a channel in it. So there's a sequencer channel that's just not notes. It's also modulation. So you can actually tell the sequencer, open the filter now, close the filter now, change it. So you can actually change the knob values in the sequencer as well, not just the note values and the length the note plays. So that's something that JDXI can do that not many other sequencers can do, which is known as modulation sequencing. So you can actually change the sound of the note rather than just the length of the note or the pitch of the note.
Very cool. Thank you for the answer. Let's move on to the next one.
Sky Gleason is back from Seattle, Washington, doing a multi-camera event, and as DIT I'll need to read many SD chips at the same time. What recommendations for readers and workflow would the panel have?
So DIT, for those of you who might not be familiar with the video, is a digital intermediate technician. That's somebody on a set who is getting the cards from the camera, usually backing them up, indexing them, making notes about them, and passing them along to the next people. And I think he meant SD cards. We don't usually refer to them as chips. But with that frame, we're going to start with Jeffrey Powers and go on to Guy Cochran.
So Kingston made this really cool thing. It's a workflow station right here. And basically, it's a multi-dock. And in here are little mini docks. It's all run USB-C. So you can get these little docks to do different things. This one is actually TF based card. This one right here is a USB and a USB-C. And then you got the regular SD card. So they have different cards. And of course, you have 4 bays to put that in. And the cool thing about this is somebody can take it to their computer and hook it up to their computer to offload, or their camera to offload onto their card, and then bring it back to the station, plug it in, and then you can do the work from there.
Fair enough. Guy.
Yeah, I like that CalDigit TS3. It is just a 1-to-1 ratio, though. The thing to be mindful of is if you get too many cards coming at you at once, it's easy to make a mistake. So I would try to avoid making that mistake of having too many things going on and you accidentally erase the wrong thing. We like to use ShotPut Pro in this scenario, and that way you're sum checking, data checking everything as it's transferring over. But yeah, I like the CalDigit and just one at a time. If I have to do multiples and it's a separate workstation, and that thing, I'm documenting what's going on. And then if you can, just don't delete anything while you're on set. Just leave everything on the media. Don't really reuse the media rent cards if you have to have multiples.
Karl Asmussen.
So the SanDisk Professional. So this is kind of an arm of SanDisk. So they make this kind of bonkers toaster, which it's kind of similar to what Jeffrey was showing. But essentially it can actually do red as well. It can do red cards. So you can actually buy the one I'm showing here. This is $820 is the cost of the package if you put 4 cam card readers. So this is the SD and compact flash readers in there. So if you put 4 of them in there, you can actually read 12 cards simultaneously. It's got a lot of other features if you turn it around. So it's actually a full-on dock as well. But yeah, so this is a pretty full-on toaster. But this will do the job. This is very high end. So this is with their G drives as well. So SanDisk owns G drive, of course. And there's their G drive professional solutions, which is like their RAID 10s and RAID 5 stuff as well. So this is up there with that.
Sky Gleason.
Taking a toaster to a film set. Yeah, go. That's it. The fun of this is I've done this job many times, but there's always something new coming out. And what, Guy, to your point of ShotPut Pro, it's now a subscription. So you can buy it just for 30 days and use it and put it on different machines. So that was the evolution of our world. But I also, the best, and the to your point of not overwriting the wrong chip, I had a guy that had a Tupperware tub. One had a green lid, one had a red lid. And you made sure you put them in the right Tupperwares.
And Chris Fenwick.
I'm not a fan of what's it called? ShotPut Pro. Mainly because it's just stupid slow. And I think that applications like ShotPut came out because in the beginning of IP acquisition, where we were gathering files and not rolling tape, I think that a lot of camera operators were befuddled by the idea of copying files off of a drive and putting them onto another drive. I firmly believe that. And as Sky, as an editor, you know how to manage files. I've seen you do it with many files. It's literally all ShotPut does is copy stuff from here to there, and then it does do the checksum. So it confirms that it's there, but that's not going to do anything different than you spot checking, a handful of files in, with a quick view. It does document it, and I have worked on jobs where we were not, in order to get our production insurance, we had to use ShotPut Pro. So at a certain point, I'm like, whose cousin writes software in the insurance industry? It's slow. If you have all the time in the world, sure, use it. But the end result is you're copying files from one place to another.
So I've had some experience with this. At NAB one year, I was the digital intermediate technician for a live booth that was recording multiple people coming through. We actually used Hedge, which is another program like ShotPut Pro. The advantage of some of these tool sets is that you're not often making one copy. You think about, I'm going to back this card up to one place. You actually want to make as many copies as you have time and effort to do for safety's sake. It's often the truth that you're going to bring in a card that has unique data on it, and you want one that's going to go off to the producers. You want another copy that's going to go into an archive, and you want a third one to run down to a fireproof bank vault or something like that, because the content that you've just captured sometimes can be worth tens of thousands, maybe even up to millions of dollars. I mean, if you have somebody on set in a movie and you've got a performance, it's a magical performance from an A-list star, that person's day may have cost $1 million. And so you want to make sure, absolutely sure, that that is protected. So these systems for me are about as much about safety. Speed is critical. And I think Chris's shot across the bow of shot put was reasonable because we had problems with these things. I would suspect that most of these tools have been rewritten and probably improved over the course of time. I don't know personally, other than Hedge, which I still use on my sets to do those backouts, how they're coming up. But I would say that unless you're using some kind of verifiable checksum background on any shoot that has serious exposure to the loss of data, I would rethink your workflow, because something back there other than I'm going to do a finder copy on my laptop of this to a second drive or something like that, that just doesn't cut it in these days when it, you spent all this time to create the content and you must protect it. Those are my thoughts about it. Let's move on.
Cuts it for me.
Mark Collins from Des Moines, Washington, is it still possible to add dynamic content to Keynote? There used to be a way to link numbers to update data in Keynote.
I'm not sure we're going to have anybody who's familiar enough with numbers in Keynote to answer that right now. I have not tried to do that myself, and I know that Alex is one of our leading Keynote experts, and if he was here today, he would probably have a solid answer to exactly how that works. You may want to come back tomorrow, or I don't know Alex's schedule, and I'm hoping he's going to be back tomorrow. But when you see Alex's face leading the panel, that would be a great time to pull a similar question back in, because I'm sure he'll be able to crush it. But I don't think anybody here uses it enough to have solid opinions that are based on actual use. So let's move on to the next question.
Stefan Fischer from Würzburg, Germany. What camera do you recommend to take a time-lapse shot of a location being built up and down?
Ooh, this will be fun. Karl Asmussen is going to dive into it.
I would suggest a GoPro. So GoPro 8, 9, or 10, and I'll suggest 2 of them because one of them may fail. So that would be my suggestion. As Alex would say, you can just record video and choose your time-lapse speed later on. Or I would say one per, if you're doing a building going up and down, it's going to be quite a long day. So I would suggest probably 1 per minute as the fastest, and maybe 1 per hour as the slowest.
Jeffrey Powers.
It really depends on where you're going to be in this time-lapse, where your camera is going to be in this time-lapse. There are several different companies that are making workplace security systems that include time-lapse security, and these become bigger cameras that are encased. So if the building just happens to fall on the camera's going to survive, hopefully survive in the most cases. So and of course, it also has something where it will start to move up as the building gets moved up, and you check it every day. And then there's some solutions that are also solar, so you can go from there. But if you're doing it on a budget, something like a GoPro, if you're doing from your room across the street or something like that, something like a GoPro works perfect, just as Karl said.
I think these are all really, really good suggestions. I would also make sure that you go out to the site and do a survey at all different times of day, because I've had time lapses come back to me where they misjudged shadows, and the things that they wanted to see went from dark to light. And there's 2 schools of thought in terms of iris control. I've had people who want to leave it on auto iris so that if an area moves into shade, the iris opens and allows more light in to get better exposures. I've also seen people who hate when you take the time lapse and run it in full. It's constantly flickering in terms of the amount of light in the shot, and they don't like that. So think about it through, and I would go out and make sure that you see the site and the angle that you're shooting from in as many conditions as you can. Mitch has some thoughts too, Mitchell Hill.
Yeah, Alex had mentioned that if you shoot it at high frame rate, then you can bring it back into After Effects and do motion blur to get a really nice, smooth movement. So
there you go. That might be another good approach. All right, let's move on to the next question.
Stefan Fischer is back again. What solution do you recommend for mounting 2 additional monitors side by side above your standard working screen? As my desk is movable up and down, is there a solution to also move these additional monitors up and down as well with a motor?
And we're going to start with Chris Fenwick for an answer to this, then move on to Karl after that. Let's go, Chris.
Excuse me. I would mount the monitors to the desk. That'll go up and down. You have to be careful with those motorized desks. It's pretty easy to overload them, but I mounted a, and it didn't have to be expensive. It was about a $40 or $50 Visa mount. I actually drilled a hole in the desk. It's tall enough that I have two, I believe those are 24-inch monitors above me. Let me see if I can show this. I have to hide a spreadsheet. These two guys are mounted on a pole that's, you could just barely see right there. My camera lens is right in this little black hole right there. But you know, it was like a $40 or $50 thing, and all I had to do is drill a hole in the desktop, and it drops down with a pin, and then there's a big nut on the bottom that you tighten down. And I wouldn't want anybody to hit it with a football, but it definitely holds the monitors up.
Moving on to Karl.
So there are plenty of motorized monitor stands. They're actually quite common. Alibaba's probably the cheapest place to just take a look. Pretty much you'll find them on Amazon as well. So there'll be importers coming into Amazon in the United States. As Chris said, probably getting it bolted to the desk. So when you move your desk up and down, they go with it. That's the simplest solution. And there's some pretty high quality clamps that you can actually get. But if you do want motorized ones that are attached to a wall, that are synced up to your desk going up and down, you can do that too.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, actually, I do have that. I have an Ergotron system because I worked with Ergotron. So this is actually not a motorized desk. I actually have to lift it up and down. But I have two Ergotron arms right there that are attached to the desk, and I can move them up and down. They're not motorized, so you just have to do it manually. But I find a lot of the times I don't have to move these at all. They just stay where they are. And then, and of course, that really depends from there. I put this all on wheels too, because what will happen is sometimes I'll need the space, so I'll just take the table, wheel it off to the corner, and then bring it back when I'm ready. But they work really well. And just as Chris said, you just got to watch the weight on them.
I'm going to do a terrible thing and show my overhead shot because I've got a mess going on here. But one of the things that I've been surprised by is some of those little IPS monitors have been getting better and better. And so I have now, I think, a total of 7 screens, maybe 8 around me. There's the big master monitor that I use, and occasionally you'll see me look up and I'm checking that because the fact that it's really big and it has decent resolution means I can read text or content. Then there's the teleprompter monitor. There's my laptop monitor. There's actually the teleprompter display screen over there. But these two IPS monitors are very, very lightweight. They're some of the new USB-C driven panels, and they are bright and very easy for me to read. And I have 2 of them over there. I also have a small iPad on a stand there and my larger iPad that I use for calling up content. So I don't know, what is that, 7, 8 different monitors? But these little ones on a simple clamp and arm rig allow you to put a lot more information in front of you. And, you know, we used to hang those big monitors, so I always had these big arms. Now I'm down to those little anchor arms with small anchor clamps because the monitor panels themselves, even though they are bright and do a good job of reproducing good resolution, weigh almost nothing. They're just weigh a few ounces. So that's been a boon to me, but your mileage may vary. Hopefully that gives you a bunch of different ideas for how to kind of arrange your circumstance. Let's move on. The next question.
I apologize for any extra noise. I have a window cleaner right outside my window right now. This is from Chirag Cheetah from Dallas, Texas, doing an event outdoors with the only internet connection coming in via pepwave. What is a way to make sure my stream is stable for this 4-day event?
And we're going to start with Guy.
Yeah, it's always nice to get a cable if you can, of course. Look around the area and see if there's a neighbor that you can pay off and run a super long cable. Remember that even those long cables will be limited to about 330 feet, I believe, with Ethernet. So the other option is an access point. If you can get a high-powered access point that can beam there's some that'll do a mile or 2. Next would be something like a live view. It sounds like you already got the pepwave. That would be the other one. The pepwave, there's different models that have different amount of cellular modems, and you need speed fusion to bond all that stuff. I think that's what he's using. The other thing is to just make sure that your encoder is like a data zipper. So, you know, most of these will do H.264, and so H.265 is what all the cool kids are using these days, and that's half the bandwidth. So if you can get H.265, now all of a sudden your 3 meg stream can be 1.5, and that's what they were demonstrating at the NAB booth in the Epiphan booth with their new H.265 upgrade. So that's a third way of just making sure, either Zixi, this orange, I can't reach it, but there's an orange box behind me, which is what Alex has, the Elemental Links. That's another little box that'll traverse the webs and drop down if you're getting really low bandwidth. So third one or fourth, whatever. I don't know how many we're up to now, but yeah, the Elemental would be the other nice piece to have, and just test ahead of time to make sure that on that day, because when crowds show up, it can make a difference as to how much data that they're pulling down. So if you can have your own dedicated, instead of having to rely on cellular like what we saw with NAB, and actually that's the other one, Mr. Net is what we used at NAB. So I'd take a look at that as well.
There's the voice of experience for you all. Let's move on. John Preto, more experience, and then Jeffrey Powers. John?
The gentleman from Seattle said it very well. So I've been fighting these outdoor venues for a very, very long time. At the rocket shoot, we had multiple forms of bandwidth. We used two Starlinks. We had both of those, and then we had, I think, a pepwave at the far site, and then we used ubiquity radios. My brother runs a large swap meet in San Diego, and they do the outdoor box offices are wireless that feed back via ubiquity radios, direct line of sight, and those have been working for 10 years, and they're mobile, and they set those up every weekend, and they work fantastic. So if you have line of sight to somewhere that has a wired connection, use the point-to-point ubiquities. That would be a good way to go.
Jeffrey Powers.
What's really funny is I just got an email from somebody. It's called OmniWave, and these are a couple different services which they talk about software bonding your cellular, so you could have like 2 or 3 phones, and then the software bonds it together, so you don't really need hardware to do anything like that. The one thing I will say about what with having the pepwave is make sure that your machine is only doing the one job, and that is sending out the stream. If you got it on a machine, wipe your machine, make sure things like Dropbox and Teams or anything like that could actually make communications harder to do inside your network are gone off that computer or hardware device or whatever. And the only thing that it's doing is it's serving out that stream. Most important.
Fair enough. We're moving on to the next question.
All right, Michael Weber from Foxborough, Massachusetts. When making SDI cables, I noticed some people like to use shrink tubing over the crimp. Is this needed or recommended for indoor rack work, or is this mostly done for field use?
Mitchell Hill's going to start us off here.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of wire you're using to hook it up. If it has a braid shield on it, sometimes it's just nice to put a little flex tube on that and then shrink it to keep the shield from dancing all over the place. Alex likes the Nutric twist-ons, so those are the ones he recommends.
Yeah, I think both things. I've known people who are in both camps. I know people who are belt-in suspenders thinkers who say the more strain relief and the more waterproofing and the more dust proofing and everything else you can get on a cable connection at the end, the better. And I know people who just say, I keep buying these and they work. So I think it's a matter of taste and preference and your experience over the course of time. Let's move on to the next question.
Chirag Cheetah from Dallas, Texas. What hardware encoder would you recommend for SRT?
And Guy is going to come back in.
Yeah, there's a couple out on the market. The Hivision Makito would be the gold standard. Those guys wrote SRT, so that one's like 10 grand though. So if you don't need to spend 10 grand, you could just use software. OBS will do it for free. As long as you have a decent computer, that'll push it up. Hardware to hardware, glass to glass is going to get you the lowest milliseconds. So you can get, like, if you snap, you'll see like real time better than what we're seeing here. The one that I'm seeing on the market that's really popular right now is the one that was in that Epiphan booth that they used at NAB because it has the H.265. So there was one that just came out from AJA, the Helio, also at NAB, but it doesn't do H.265. So there's a few out there that'll do H.265. And then on the other end, you need a decoder, of course. And then some cameras have SRT built in. Like right now this is a camera coming in from Los Angeles on the left there, and that's SRT real time right now. It's less than half a second delay. But yeah, the encoder's in the camera, so you actually don't need a hardware encoder. So a lot of the newer cameras, if you look at the specs, they have SRT built in, so you can just shoot straight up and not have to do anything. But I know that he's doing a some kind of sporting event, and he's going to need to add scoring and things like that. So he will be using vMix, or I'm sure it's vMix. And then the other one is Matrox has another $8,000 one, but this one's only $1,400 or $1,500. So I would be looking at the Epiphan Pearl would be my choice, and what I'm seeing Tucker and Jonas and other customers pick up. So, and actually, that's one more thing. The cheap one. So you will find cheap SRT encoders out there. The thing to be aware of is the interface, how easy it is to use, because these China ones, man, like if you're under duress and you're trying to get a signal up fast and you're poking around something because they just didn't spend time on the UI, you'll find where it's worth spending the extra money for one from a name brand like Haivision, Matrox, Epiphan. Those are the good names to take a look at.
Since we have we're waiting for more and more questions to come in. We've got another 7 or 8 in the queue, hoping for more. But I've got to ask you, Guy, was it you that art directed that mashup of Dean Martin and Wonder Woman together? And who is the Wonder Woman? Is that Gal Gadot, or is it somebody else? I need to know.
Somebody else set this up down at the Data Video offices, and I've been playing with these BB1. So I'm piped in via their little VPN network, and I'm able to control that remote control camera. That piece is on my iPad downstairs. But the cool thing is seeing this stuff, remote production. It's just wild to see this stuff, especially when it's in real time and synced. I mean, it's crazy what you can do with 4K and do a 4K extract and get multiple boxes and have everything frame accurate. I mean, the future is so cool. I can't wait to see what we wind up doing with these other events like NAMM and Cinegear and whatnot.
I agree with you. I keep that old Paul Simon line, "These are the days of miracles and wonders," keeps coming into my head as I'm on office hours or listening to office hours every day. There's so much technological progress coming in. The fact that we can do the things we do just astonishes me every day. So let's move on to the next question.
And the next question comes from Simon Ray. And since we have the time, what is the proper way to pronounce Shrewsbury, UK? I'll leave it.
Who knows? Who is native to that part of the world who says?
I thought somebody would pop in and tell me.
Dennis. Dennis.
Come on, Dennis. Give it to me.
Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury as an O. So
Bree.
Simon
I don't
Ray
think there's
from
a lot of Anyway,
Shrewsbury, UK. So thank you. Appreciate the help. I figured we had the time. Could Chris Fenwick describe his experience with pluggable devices and Zoom ISO, please? His initial enthusiasm for the pluggables seemed to be more muted on later occasions he referred to them. Does he consider them reliable enough?
Chris, it's up to you.
Hey, Simon. So this is the box. It is the upside down pluggable. I think the model number is the USB-C. I got to turn it upside down. 6950U. So basically, it's a USB Thunderbolt 3, whatever. It comes with this adapter in case you have to. It's kind of cute. It has a little bay back there. In case you have to use USB-C. Yes, it works. So here's what happened with me. So I bought it by recommendation of Mr. Carluccio, and you can plug it in, and it's got 2 HDMI outputs. It also has 2 display ports, but who uses that? And it totally works. You have to install software on your computer to fake the additional monitor outputs. That part is a bit of a bummer, but it does work. And what I do then is I take those 2 HDMI outputs and I plug them into my ATEM Extreme. So you may be wondering, why am I holding this? Well, I bought 2 of them. And what we learned was that for some people, myself included, hooking up 2 of them to get 4 monitor outputs churns through your RAM somehow. You'll start to get full resolution, but all of a sudden it'll like boop, 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 and the resolution will drop. And I didn't notice it at first. And at first I was like, wow, isn't this cool? I'm getting 4 1080 outputs out of this stock, off-the-shelf Mac Mini. However, if I unplug one, this is the one that's unplugged, by the way. If I unplug one, the other one absolutely delivers 1080 all day, every day. We've done some experiments anecdotally, I can't remember exactly who it was, who had more RAM in their Mac Mini, and they did not experience any different behavior. But in terms of reliability, I use this thing all the time to record Zoom interviews. So I can only get two 1080 streams. Most of the time I'm just recording one person, so it doesn't matter. If you recall, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, Mr. Carluccio said that he's really excited that there will be an update to Zoom ISO this summer that he's actually very much looking forward to showing off to people. But that's the thing. 2 outputs, absolutely reliable. Keep in mind, I'm using it for recording it. I'm not using it live, but we use them. Other people I know use them live, and in my opinion, it absolutely works. Zoom ISO is the key to the whole thing, though.
Chris,
when you're dealing with Zoom.
You mentioned it, and I think I was distracted for a moment. How much RAM is in the Mac Mini that's having a trouble pushing it? And do you honestly think that just more memory in that Mac Mini might have solved the problem?
Yeah, I did mention that. The RAM does not affect it. It experiences the same lack of ability to deliver 4 feeds with an 8 gig Mac Mini and a 16 gig Mac Mini. So having more RAM doesn't solve it. And I sincerely apologize to anybody that bought it expecting to get 4 1080s. I was confused, and I owe you a meal and a half if you're angry about that. But in terms of getting 2 out, it absolutely works. Now, if you do the math, because when I met my wife, I told her every problem in life can be solved with math. If you do the math, part of me wants to I'm going to go get a Mac Studio, and it has all those outputs and whatnot. It's much cheaper to just buy a second Mac Mini and put this thing on that Mac Mini. If I had to get 4 outputs all the time, that's what I would do. For another $700, I'm done. Right, I'm done.
And is the Mac Mini you were running it on one of the new M series, or is it an older one? So it's a new M, and is it the big processor or one of the middle processors? I'm just trying to figure out for some.
I don't know. It's the one that you get at the Apple store. You just go in and say, "I want a Mac Mini." It's the one they're going to hand you.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't get into all these numbers, Bill. Don't drag me down that path.
I'm not. I just remember that I've had certain things that I didn't work for me and worked for somebody else, and when I investigated, it turned out they had a different central processor or something like that. And it takes me back to the days where my first DSLR had the Digic 1 chip in it, and it could only barely do 1 level of video out. And then as the chips got faster, it had much more capability to do multi-video out. So I was trying to project that into chips and just wondering whether the problem that you have with not getting enough output was something about how you configure the machine, or whether it was something more esoteric.
The suspicion is that the culprit is the Display Link software. So Display Link was invented to get more outputs for people that don't want to buy video cards. Okay. And I don't know if that's, I don't know who that, whatever. Yeah. But it was never intended to deliver for HD, 1920 by 1080 signals off of, a little computer. But
fair enough.
Two totally works. Four works if you don't need 1080p. I will say sometimes it drops to 640 by 360.
Okay. Jeffrey has some thoughts on it, though. Let's get his opinion.
Yeah, for Chris's system is the original Mac M1, so 8 gig, and we talked about that. And of course, I have the 2 that I taped together. Just a small correction: it is USB-C. It is not Thunderbolt 3, so it's only going at 5 gigs per box.
But it looks the same.
It looks the same, yeah, absolutely. Doesn't have the little chip inside, though.
fancy.
Okay.
Look at you
Well,
all,
I think
you
we beat this up enough. So unless anybody
No,
has
let's do
anything
another
to-
20 minutes on this. Fredo, what's your opinion? Let's get.
Let's not.
Meh,
Let's go ahead
meh.
on to the next question.
All righty. Robert Shoji from Los Angeles, California. A friend is texting videos from his iPhone 13 Max to my iPhone SE2, but the videos are coming in at a low resolution. Any suggestions?
Carl's going to start us off here.
Yeah, so there's two usually common things. So one is in settings for messages, there's a low quality photo mode. It also relies on video. And the other one, which is quite common, especially if you have people with, the green bubbles. And so that would also be, that would be the messaging MMS. So MMS would be the other one. So MMS is kind of a little bit annoying in a way because it does push out away from what iOS can actually handle. So MMS would be found in similar settings. So you'd simply go to messages and turn MMS off. If you have green bubble friends, you may want to leave that on because now there is a third option. So the third option is when you go to a photo or a video and you hit the share button. So you hit the square with the arrow pointing up. Before you touch on someone's face or find someone to send it to, up the top you see options. You can send them an iCloud link. Now that will always be the highest quality and be available for 30 days, regardless of what platform they're on as well. So they can be on Android as well. So if you go there and you say send this as, and it will say send it as automatic, as low quality, or send it as iCloud link. iCloud link's the best one to do. And there's kind of an unwritten thing that if a video is over about 222 megabytes, it's going to be down res regardless, no matter what you do. If you're trying to send it via cellular or Wi-Fi, even if it's via Wi-Fi, Apple has this kind of maximum size of about 200 odd megabytes. If you do the iCloud link, then whatever your backup is in the cloud, that's actually what it's going to point to. So it's actually going to point to your video backup in the cloud. That's what gets shared for 30 days or however long Apple chooses to share it with someone else, regardless of what platform they're on. So that'd probably be the best way to make sure they definitely get the highest quality is before you touch on someone's face, go to options, say iCloud link, and then go and touch on their face and say, here's the link, and they can go download it themselves.
I was watching Chris in the panel view, and he desperately wants to weigh in on this. Chris, go.
So, Karl, you're super smart, first off. Also, the iCloud link, does that only work if I have already decided to put my photos on iCloud as a backup?
No, so it'll send it up there. So if you're not choosing to use iCloud as that, because you get 5 gig free no matter who you are. So it's only when you go over 5 gig. So it actually uses part of that 5 gig. So what actually happens is it'll actually send it up, and that's why it only lasts for 30 days or so, because it's not storage. So it's not permanent storage. It's just going to go up and Apple's going to delete it. But yeah, so if you actually say send this to iCloud link, then it's going to upload from you to the cloud. And then the link will be, they'll get the link straight away, I believe. And if I click on the link, it will say not ready yet. And it'll be ready. But it won't take too long even if you're on cellular to upload like a 1 gig video. It'll take maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes.
So what's interesting, this thing about what Karl is mentioning, when you click on the options, it says all photos data.
If you're in a photo, it's a little bit different. So all photos data is going to send all your edits as well. So that's like sending all the sidecar file as well. That's pretty cool because you can actually send someone the original photo and all the edits you've done, and they can go and undo all your edits and do new edits.
So yes, but I'm actually sharing a video here. So when I hit options, that's still the thing that pops up, all photos data.
Yep.
I believe the other thing you get, and this is Sky, we ran into this on the rocket launch. When you do all photos data, you get the cinema depth map.
Yep. You get everything
stuff also. So
you get everything. So everything that's on your iPhone is literally bit for bit copied over. It's not on by default. I don't think you can actually make it on by default either. You actually have to go and select it.
I enjoyed that conversation tremendously, and I'm going to start calling people green bubble friends from now on, just in honor of Karl, because I thought that was awesome.
They still have friends. They're just in a.
They're not green bubble friends, or they are green bubble friends.
They're friends, but they're just green bubble friends. That's all.
Chris, did you have a last comment on this?
Thank you for being here, Karl. I appreciate your participation.
We all feel that occasionally. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Thank you. I learned stuff in that one. That was great.
Douglas Carmichael asked the question, Tom Oberheim is releasing the OBX8 synth for US $5,000, and one comment was that professional studios would buy it. In the post-dvGarage PXC era, where cost is king and production is democratized, will there still be a market for pro music studios?
Ooh, this is a long philosophical discussion. Karl is going to start us off here.
All right, so normally I don't talk about leaked photos. So one of these things is coming out very soon, and the other one's a leaked photo. So the one at the top is Behringer's. It's pretty much ready to go. And they've made 2 versions of it too. It costs probably 1/10 of what the one at the bottom costs, maybe a 20th. The thing is, with the Oberheim ones, it's kind of funny that Sequential will be doing it with Tom Oberheim, so because Sequential is going to be the company that's making them. But Behringer has known that this may happen, and so they've gone, okay, we're going to get the cheaper end of the market. So these are the prototypes. So you can see the green background. This is a green anti-static background from Behringer's test benches. So this is the desktop version. So it's for the one that's even half the price. And the good thing about ones that are half the price is they will actually sell and outrid the market of anything else that could happen. And so Behringer's got them on the test bench already. They're ready to come. So this is why Sequential and Tom Oberheim want to do them, because Behringer's just waiting on the chipsets for the MIDI controllers. That's the bottleneck, and that's the bottleneck for the whole industry at the moment, is those chipsets, which we know there's other chipset problems. But yeah, that's actually the big thing. So if Oberheim do this, and we're hearing prices from, well, it's leaked image, we're hearing prices up to $8,000 for this, where we know that Behringer's one is going to probably be about $1,200 US, and the desktop version is probably going to be about $800, $900 US. So yeah, a fraction of the cost.
Sky Gleason.
Well, I was introduced to Behringer early days, and they would take a piece of equipment, and then, as the term was politely said, democratized it, but they would take it to their factory in China, reverse engineer it, and then make a lot more of them at, like you said, a 20th the price of the original hard work that was done to make the product. Harbor Freight is another product that does that, and consequently you get tools for 1/10 the price of some of the name brand. So Karl, I guess my question for you is, why do we buy a Lamborghini versus a Hyundai?
People will buy both, to be honest. They'll buy both, and they'll want to make a video saying this versus that. That's literally like every synth owner who says, I want to, there's a few synths right up top, like the Moog 1. There's a few synths that's right up there. There's no real competition for them because no one wants to spend $16,000 on a synth in a way, on a brand new synth anyway, not a vintage one. But a lot of the synths that are up there now, if you're going to do an analog synth and you're going to charge more than $5,000 and you're going to make it very similar to what the original was, because you're really just doing a replica at that time, where the Moog 1 isn't a replica, it's brand new. So a good one here is Prophet 5 and Prophet 10. So again, Behringer has Prophet 16 on the test bench right now. So if you're going to do that and you're going to charge, like the Prophet 10 is like $5,000, $4,000 US. So it's pretty expensive. If you're going to do that, you're only getting to a very niche market of synth owners who just want to own the Lamborghini and not the not the kit car. But with synths, there's no change here, because a lot of the chipsets that are going into these higher end ones are coming from Behringer, because Behringer is the only company that makes these analog chips now. So not all the chips, of course, but some of those common ICs would be coming from Cool Audio, which is a company owned by Behringer.
It's a tough thing. This whole idea of knockoff. Somebody does a lot of design work. Everybody loves the product. So suddenly you get a flood of similar, sometimes actually almost identical. But it happens across almost any
knockoffs, because they haven't been built in 40 years. And
so these are kind of reissues?
Are ancient. Yeah, these are 1970s. So the Oberheim is 1970s, 1980s. So Van Halen's Jump is on the modern version of that Oberheim. So that's
interesting.
Like mid-80s. So yeah, these Oberheims are from the late 70s, early 80s. So, and Tom Oberheim's company went out of business, and Sequential went out of business, and they kind of got brought back. So these companies have actually gone out, like Moog's gone out of business, and Moog, the name has come back, but it's not the same company. It's just the name came back. But all these analog companies have gone out of business, pretty much all of them, with one exception, Roland. But Roland moved away from analog, and they went and focused on digital. So what Behringer's doing is actually, the problem is, if you want to get an analog synth before Behringer started in 2015, you spent $20,000. And early Behringer was not happy with that. Why should people who want to get analog synths spend $20,000 just because there's this barrier to entry that these people who they can just put $20,000 on it. You have to pay for that if you want a synth from like the early 80s or late 70s. And Uli went, well, I own the chipset company. I can just make these. And he did. And he built his own first. The first 2 synths were actually Behringer designed. And then after that, they started to do some recreations or homages to classic synths with modern updates like MIDI and digital controls, which is pretty cool, and memory.
Okay. Jeffrey wants to weigh in on this.
So getting back to the overall question on this, are the pro music studios still viable in this situation? The answer is absolutely yes, because there's going to be a lot of musicians coming in. Yeah, I can set up a studio and put a whole bunch of stuff in there and call it a pro studio and get a high-end person to do all the mixing and that running from my home, but it's still a pro studio. But the reality is when they got somebody in there that's brand new, that's probably working off a $200 Yamaha guitar or something, or a $200 Yamaha keyboard for that matter, and they want to get them behind something like this, that's where these pro studios will start to come in, because they'll be taking care of it. They can rent out the studios to different bands that really want to experiment with the sound, and then they can basically just work from there and possibly record some new albums and some new artists.
And Chris Fenwick wants to weigh in.
I'm not going to lie, Karl. You described these synths from the 70s as being ancient. I'm from the early 60s, and it kind of hurt my feelings.
Fair enough. I think that's the last word on that one. We're going to move on to the next question.
Yes, I'm speaking as a 70s child. Gordon Lake from Los Angeles, California. DJI released the Mini 3 Pro 4K drone that at 249 grams doesn't require an FAA license to operate. Are drone shots becoming a standard in most productions while eliminating the need for licensed pilots in many cases? And he has a link there.
And Mitchell's going to start off the discussion.
I don't think it's a good idea to go out of your way to avoid an FAA license or certification, because there's a lot of knowledge in that helps you from having problems with low flying aircraft or other things. I think the limit is 500 feet unless there's something else going on. But the other thing is I think drone shots are, I hate to say, I'm going to be the guy that's going against it. My DP and I both agree that it's being overused. It's just way too many drone shots. Unless you have a car dealership and you want to show your cars, or you're a real estate agent, or maybe you're launching giant rockets into space, maybe a little too many, except for the rocket part. I think that's kind of cool. So I would avoid going for something just because you don't need to have it licensed. Licensing is good.
Chris Fenwick's weighing in.
Mitchell, it pains me to have to agree with you. No, I agree. I think that I think safety is important. When the Phantom 4 came out, that's when I bought the first drone, our first drone, and I marveled over the fact that it was the cheapest 4K camera that we owned, and it flew. You know, so it was. It is a fascinating, segment of the industry, and yeah, you could do some fun stuff, but you got to be super careful. And so, just to buy this because you don't have to be licensed, I have crashed drones into the Embarcadero in San Francisco. Now, mind you, this is all before all the licensing stuff got to be a big deal. Crash landed in the middle of the Embarcadero. And I will say, because of some weird technical thing, not because I was flying it irresponsibly, I hit a producer in the face with a Phantom 4. So drones are dangerous. And you have to be, luckily, the producer was a good friend and remarkably still is. So you have to be super careful. And so, yeah, don't just run out like, I don't need a license. You know, you still have to be super careful. These things are dangerous. This thing is flying. It's experiencing the miracle of flight with a camera attached to it. And, but I do think it's super clever that DJI, because I will say drones were also more fun when they were not licensed.
Sky Gleason.
And your friend One-Eyed Bill really still likes you, Chris. He sent me a text. The motorcycle class that I took, the person got up at the front of the class, and it was a motorcycle safety class, and said, "When you have your first accident." And that was the what? He says, no. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so the question of being licensed versus the ability to own a thing that can fly, and to Chris's point, possibly do damage. It's the training. But what I'd really be interested in asking Karl is, again, the just because you can doesn't mean you should, of what is the value of a high, wide perspective that a drone can give you. And unfortunately, yes, it's overabused, like most things are, because they quote the word previously was democratized. But again, now that everybody can buy a not a $20,000 synthesizer, but a $5,000 synthesizer, does that mean we're going to have better music? I don't know. Anyway,
Karl?
So Karl, I throw the question to you as far as just because you can doesn't mean should.
There are kind of, yeah, that's right. I think in storytelling, a drone or a helicopter shot or, a techno crane shot is good for an establishing shot. And so we still have that as an establishing because it tells the audience where we are, the time of day, the season. So it tells a lot in one shot, one very wide shot. Then you got like stuff like Lord of the Rings, which is more like epic, which is, helicopter shots, or helicopters done back then, of course. And I even believe The Hobbit was as well. You just get better control, you can get larger cameras, of course. But in storytelling, even if you're doing a wedding and you've been hired to do video for a wedding and you've got a drone, I think a drone is a perfect thing to do an establishing shot, like at the reception or the weddings at a vineyard or something. You can show that. Whereas if you're doing if you're on tripods or, on some Steadicam rig, it makes it harder to see that you're at a nice vineyard at sunset. So that's where you don't want to overuse it. But if you're 50% of your production's from a drone, then, unless you're BBC doing wildlife documentary in the middle of Africa, you got to really ask yourself the question, am I doing the right thing with the tools I have? Just remember they're tools, and you're making a product, or you're delivering content to a person, or you're making your own content for your own means. Use the correct tools for the correct job. But as an establishing shot or as a tracking leaving shot, perfect. They're perfect for those kind of things in modern times.
What I'm hearing over and over again is that it is another tool in the thing. It is going to replace some older tools. I can't remember, early in my career, I was on the top of cranes, all sorts of weird things, Bell helicopter Jet Ranger out the window with a camera on my shoulder. That stuff is pretty much gone now because this has supplanted it. But as the new generation of young people particularly learn the language of these things, you should do a Google search on bowling alley drone shot for that one that most everybody has seen now. It is literally a set of perspectives of looking at a place that you could not have gotten in the old days anywhere near the same as you can now. And that one, which I think was Jaybird Films, did the original of that, was just a wake up. No camera operator could have gotten that before. It is stunning, his use of the new tool in a way that hadn't been used before. And it opened up the thinking of a lot of cinematographers and people and people like Mr.
Bill,
Bird.
to your point, I was put in a front loader excavator and lifted up in Winslow, Arizona to get a perspective of and I'd love to have had a drone. I'm just saying that operator did not expect to have humans in his front end loader, and that was not a pleasant experience. We did an
eagle release once, and I was at the top of a 100-foot cherry picker out in the Sonoran Desert, and it was a great day in my life. I enjoyed it. I would have been sad if I hadn't had that day, but it's impractical. I mean, literally trying to drive that huge rig out into the desert to do that with a background that wasn't city was a production, and it took a lot of time and effort that we could have, somebody go out there on a motorcycle with a drone and get the same perspective. It's just a different thing now. Chris has some more thoughts. Chris?
I was just wanting to mention that I did this, what I mentioned the time I crashed the drone into the Embarcadero. We were at the ferry building, and I actually took the footage and I synced it up with all of the UI data off of the thing, the controller deal. And I go through it like literally step by step, and I'm showing how I'm pulling the controls one way and the actual drone is doing something that I was not telling it to do. and I synced it all up, and it's terrifying. And between this accident and hitting my friend Lisa, that's when I stopped flying drones.
Yeah. There are people who dedicate themselves to these things. And it's like a pianist. I mean, a lot of people play the piano and they have fun with it, and they should. There are very few concert pianists who work at the absolute top of things, and they have a different set of skills and a different set of experiences and capabilities. And it's
and very seldom does that piano end up hitting your friend in the face when you play it.
That's very true. No noses were damaged in the production of the music today. So, all right, we're going to move on to the next question.
That's a tough one to follow. Stefan Fischer from Würzburg, Germany. Does anyone remember the SDI to NDI box that Alex mentioned the other day? The use case was putting 3 SDI signals from a Sonnet card into a computer to mimic different webcams to use the signals within a Keynote presentation.
Looks like Guy does. Guy?
Yeah, it's not the direct box. I believe that he was speaking about that would convert SDI to NDI, and there's a bunch of those out there. KiloView, AJ has the NDI bridge that's like $13,000 that'll do this. But I think because he already owns the Sonnet boxes with the SDI, the DeckLink cards from Blackmagic that are in that, he wants to bring those in as sources into Keynote. And the product that was released at NAB that would do this turns the NDI signal into a UVC class compliant USB webcam, essentially. So when you go into Keynote, you can have multiple cameras. So on the Mac and on PC, you only get NDI virtual input, which will be one camera. So it would only see the one. So if you want to bring in multiples, you'll need something like that new BirdDog $199 device that was announced at NAB. When they'll ship it, who knows? People are still waiting for their BirdDog plays since almost a year ago. So come on, BirdDog.
The chip shortage and just the commerce is hard. We're moving to the next question.
And it's from Mark Collins in Des Moines, Washington. For those in Seattle, is there a place to go to rent 3/4-inch deck? I have some old U-matic footage I'd like to digitally archive, but I'd like to look through the tapes to see what I like to keep, so I don't want to use a service.
We should note that anytime you're dealing with original tape, it is a questionable thing. Tapes haven't been manufactured in quite a long time. They are getting old, and Alex always notes it, and I think he's exactly right to do so. The first time you put that tape in a new deck and play it back, it is possibly the last time that all that oxide will be in place, so be very careful. That is the argument for professional restorative tape houses. If you're going to take a shot, though, we've got people here to talk about it, so we're going to start with Guy and then go to Mitchell.
In addition to the usual suspects in Seattle, if you come join us for dinner on Friday night, I will give you a 3/4-inch deck. So come to dinner, and I will load it in the trunk of my car, and it will be delivered to you.
Gift with meal. How can you go wrong with that? Yeah. I would say Guy is being incredibly generous by offering that, but what's the retail street value of that 3/4-inch deck now, Guy?
I don't know, but I need to get them out of my warehouse. I think I have 3 of them. So
it's become an I will pay you to take it. So it's not my problem anymore. Mitchell Hill.
Yeah, there's a good chance that every one of the panelists here, especially us older guys, have a 3/4-inch doorstop somewhere in our lexicon of available equipment.
Got out of mine 10 years ago. I was lucky.
Another place to look you might consider, because a service bureau is going to be expensive, is look on eBay and buy a used one for like $100 or $200, or go see Guy.
Sky Gleason.
Or again, the equipment's only half the challenge is the engineer to keep it running or clean it, isopropyl. But you might try Victory Studios. They had at one time all of the equipment, including 2-inch at one point when I worked there a million years ago. But they did do a house cleaning recently, so they may not have it. But try Victory.
If you're gonna try to resurrect an old one, a couple of things to note. First of all, the capstan and the pinch roller is what moves the tape through the things. I don't ever use isopropyl because often people buy the wrong thing, get rubbing alcohol, which can have oils in it, which will grease up the tracks. So I always use denatured alcohol instead. Be very careful with the heads. They're helical scan. That's a little thing that rotates inside of there. So you can find YouTube videos about how to do all this cleaning if you want to. But do try to play the tape as little as possible until you're set up to capture. In fact, I would set up to capture the very first time you put it on, just in case it works well. And that tape is so old that the oxide does start flaking on you. But good luck, and pop back, Mark, and let us know if you were successfully able to get it off of there. Chris Widener in Lafayette comes up next, but you're going to make the call on that. Go ahead.
Old habits die hard. Chris Widener in Lafayette, he's here with a question. DJI Mini 3 Pro, a WDJI RC controller, was just released, and thanks to the new update, the controller has clean HDMI. What do we think about the new camera sensor size of 1 and 1.3 inch CMOS?
And John Preto is going to take us over.
Look at the specs of this thing is amazing. It's got great f-stop on the 4K camera. It's got HDR on it. Got a great sensor. And it's got HDMI out on the controller, which the smart controller itself I thought was expensive, and it sells for $1,000. This is a great deal. This new drone.
Sounds like there's some excitement about this, and we all know that DJI is the leader, I think, in that category. So my suspicion is they've made another fine product that will probably do the job really well. Mitchell, next up.
Yep, Chad Lafarge from Columbia, Missouri. He has a question. I know there's been some hesitancy by some to implement NDI Hulk mode concerns. Now has NDI progressed over these years and your confidence level increased? How? Sorry.
We're going to start with Guy, then John Preto, and then Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just people not knowing how to use it in a professional environment. They get addicted to it by just plugging and playing with their existing network, and they don't know how to tweak a lot of the things like IGMP snooping, multicast, how to use discovery servers, and then the loads, like people putting too many devices on and saturating a 1 gigabit network card. So sometimes it's better to have a separate NIC, just especially if you're doing 4K, because you can get over 220 per feed if you're doing 4K 60. So there is an NDI performance networking class offered from NewTek, and I suggest anybody who's serious go through that, because NDI is rock solid stable once you know what you're doing. So I have 100% confidence in it. It is a fantastic product.
Next up, we have John Preto.
I'm one of those guys a guy was talking about that doesn't know what I'm doing, because my NDI just crashed this week. It worked great for 2 years, and all of a sudden it's not working anymore. I've been using NDI to bring that into the OBS, as Chris calls it. And I keep hearing horror stories. It's probably people that don't know what they're doing. I'm waiting for 2110.
And we're moving on to Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, so I got to talk with KiloView, and I saw their new systems, and of course their new N60 box, which connects the cameras to the thing. As for that Hulk mode was a NDI 4 thing, and a lot of things. If you're updating to the latest versions of the NDI tools, and I know it's kind of tough, and I've told them before, because basically you go to the NDI tools page, and they have the link, and it's the exact same link. So they might have updated it this week from last week, and it's still the exact same link. It looks exactly the same until you download it and install it, and then you find out that they've changed one of the monitor or something like that to a newer version. So always go and check on the link. Uninstall your NDI if you're on the older version, and then reinstall or install the newer version from there. And of course, use that access manager and plot your IPs and put everything together into the structure. And just as Guy said, watch your network, because I've successfully run NDI in many different situations, including remote situations where the cameras were even wireless, and they did a great job with what they were doing.
And for those of you who don't know it, I couldn't get the picture of it up, but we used to run into this a lot. There's a Hulk mode that images used to get into when I think early NDI that looked green with kind of purple. Anybody would turn, it would leave nothing but those two colors on screen, and we would look very weird. We started calling that Hulk mode. So that's what we're talking about. Guy Cochran has a thought about this.
Yeah, just one more thing. I wanted to add that there are some specific Netgear switches that are not just for NDI, but also for Dante networks, where they have a wizard that'll walk you through. So if you are using some kind of older switches or you want to get into NDI and you just want to make it simple, you don't have time to go through all these courses and whatnot, just going through with a Netgear or something that's specific for it. I think that there's a lot of what I'd call legacy fear about using it, because some people got burned. Again, they didn't know what they're doing. I don't want to use the word ignorance, but I will. NDI, again, is used in professional environments. It is awesome.
Perfect. Chris Weidner. I'm sorry. Next question. Duh.
Yes, it's coming from Chris Weidner, Lafayette, Indiana. In 2023, I'm going to Melbourne, Australia, hopefully. What is your favorite tools for planning out points of interest you want to photograph ahead of international travel?
Chris Fenwick's going to start us, and then we'll go to Karl in Australia, in fact.
So, hey, Chris, what I would do, use Google Maps. Like if you start scrolling around on Google Maps, you'll find little clusters of photos that you can click on and look at what other people have already photographed. That'll get you to like the popular things. My biggest recommendation for anybody doing any kind of travel, international travel especially, is do not put your camera in a case. Like we love to talk about our Pelicans and our shoulder bags and stuff like this. Don't put your camera in a case. Every time you put a camera in a case, you miss out on photos that you may take. I traveled for 6 weeks through Europe several years ago. Literally took a Canon 5D with a 16 to 35 lens on it, walked it through security, walked it on the plane, put it on the floor in front of me, and mashed it down with my foot during takeoff so it didn't slide to the back of the plane. By carrying your camera, you will get much more interesting photos than if you pack up all your stuff in a bag and then go out on a photo safari and then get someplace and then unpack everything. No cases when I travel.
Karl.
So the Google thing, yeah, Google Earth is another one. You can actually switch on photos on the left-hand panel. Google Earth is another one. It's really good for that. So the one I'm going to suggest maybe seem a little odd. So it's actually the Victorian government itself. So the Victorian government actually has it on there. So this is kind of what's on in Melbourne. So you can actually say, where are you at the top here? So you can actually say, and that's if you want to go see stuff, but it also tells you best places in Melbourne to take photographs. And so it'll actually give you the touristy kind of spots. But it does actually go through the kind of artsy spots too. So because the city of Melbourne does want you to go to every corner of the city to spend your money, they will give you spots off the beaten trail to go to go take these kind of photographs. So this is kind of where I'd start. I'll put the link into Meccana. But this, and if you actually follow this and you just take a look at the names that these are, where they are, they'll go through more and more. You'll actually find other ones as well. So these are generally in the CBD or close to the CBD around the central business district of Melbourne. But there are going to be others as well. But I'll put the link for this into Meccana.
Sky Gleason.
Karl, I clicked on that website. It's amazing. I still had to exit through the gift shop. It was amazing. I don't know how they do that. The question, though, is a friend of mine once said, take pictures with people in them, because otherwise you've got some picture of yet another rock, and it could be another rock. And I love architectural photography. I love shapes and the repetitive nature of architecture. But I really listen to that advice from my friend, because it's like at the end of the day, it's kind of the human thing. Otherwise, you're going to make me sit and some Sunday afternoon, I'm going to have to sit and pretend I like all of your amazing pictures of amazing rocks.
Jeffrey Powers.
Jennifer is my Reddit master. She is really good at finding Reddit subthreads that do that. And when we did a lot of traveling, when we went to South Korea, when we went to Tel Aviv, and that the first thing she did was go up on Reddit and go into these subreddits and ask what to do, where to go, where to shoot, things like that. And so I would suggest get up on Reddit, find a subreddit for Melbourne, and of course, get the panelists that do know the city that well, and ping them and ask them hundreds of questions, but you'll find some really good hidden gems if you do that.
And I just wanted to riff for a second on one of the things that I did early, which really has stood me in good shape for my entire photography life. And that was the first time I got a phone that did good pictures. I was missing too many things in life that were happening, and I thought, I should have taken a picture of that, and I didn't do it. So I got my phone out for one afternoon, and I tried to school myself into a quick draw phone set of behaviors. If this is in my left-hand pants pocket, and if I can keep it there when I'm out traveling and things like that, reach in, pull it out, and have a couple of things, a quick flip here to open the camera, a handhold grip that I was used to, stabilization by tucking my elbows in, and the ability to either hit still shots or start video. And if I knew how to do that in 10 or 15 seconds or less, What I found was that I did it more. I was confident so that when something happened in front of me that was interesting, I had this path that I had built in my head for, okay, good, that much time and I can start shooting. And I started feeling more confident about getting those weird things in life that happen in front of me. I just find that very comforting to know that if something beautiful or magical or interesting happens in front of me and my camera's in the pocket, I have this path to capture it as fast as possible. That's been fun for me. Your mileage may vary. Mitchell Hill?
I'd like to make a strange suggestion here. Why don't we create an office hours flag, like Been Here or something to that effect, and then anybody that's doing any travel in exotic locations, even Australia, can take a photograph of that picture. It's like the gnome thing that people used to do.
Oh, yeah, I remember the gnome. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Well, suggest it in not after hours. Well, and talk about it in after hours, but suggest it in the Discord for show topics, and maybe the community wants to get together and come up with something. I'm sure there will be more than a few creative choices for what kind of object the office hours totem, I guess, is that what you'd call it, will be.
Flag, totem, gnome.
Next question.
Next question from Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I want more display screen space on my Windows 10 system. Will it use fewer resources to have two 22-inch displays or one 32-inch?
Jeffrey Powers is going to weigh in on this.
There's a lot of unknown factors in that question there. It's a great question. The reality is the 22-inch monitors, are they 1080p? Are they 4K monitors? And that 32-inch monitor, is that also going to be 4K? Is that going to be wider? Is that going to be at 144 hertz, 165 hertz? And then, of course, what kind of graphics card do you have inside your machine? All those factors weigh in, because mostly it's more about the graphics card than anything. If you're using the Intel chip, we're talking laptops and you're using the Intel chip to do the graphics, it shouldn't make much of a difference if you're going from two 22s to a 32. If you're hooking up more than what the computer will allow, like for instance, if you're hooking up to 5K displays into a desktop or laptop that can only do two 4K displays, then you run into problems. But I'm pretty sure that if you switch to a 32-inch, you should be fine, but would need to know some more specs.
Chris Fenwick wants to weigh in.
I don't know anything about Windows, but I want to make sure we don't run out of time because there's another question about me coming up. So can we move on?
Okay, so we're going to hurry up then. Paul Wallace but I shouldn't have announced that. Mitch should.
That's quite all right. Paul Wallace from Austin, Texas is here with a question. Have you checked out the new DJI Mini Pro 3 with 34 minutes fly time? Game changer? Worth the price?
Sky is in first, and then there were other panelists here that I'm expecting to pop up.
Well, again, we talked about this a few minutes ago, and I went and looked at the website, and it looks very exciting because the little 12-minute batteries that I had 2 years ago, again, what I wanting to always want to be a bird, apparently since a child, when I had the heads-up display available to me, that was magical for me because it was the ability to fly without getting the pilot's license. Now, we talked about getting your license, and you should do that because you're going to learn how to not hurt something or someone or yourself. But for the price, it feels kind of like Moore's Law. It's going to get cheaper, faster in every 18 months. So that theory is consistent. Looks like a great piece of kit.
So I would imagine that we'll probably have something coming up on office hours that is more focused on that, but keep asking questions about it. Let's move on to the next thing.
Robert Shoji from Los Angeles. Any YouTube channel recommendations on learning the basics of Logic Pro?
Karl.
Yeah, there sure are. So my best one is Guildhall. So without doubt, this is probably one of the best YouTube channels as far as Logic Pro. And you can just see by the title of their videos. They're quite long. There's a professor that goes through them, and they actually have, like, as you can see down here, they actually have an orchestra on stage. And they go, okay, orchestra, play. And they play, and they record the session, and then he just gets the orchestra to sit there for the next 10 minutes while he tells you. So it is amazing, because it is a music school. And so these are master classes, but the cool thing is part 1 and part 2 are entry, and then we get into some more serious stuff down here as far as recording film scoring. But he actually has an orchestra on stage to do this with like 80 microphones. So, and the cool thing is with this is because it's recorded, you can actually watch 5 minutes of it, press pause, and then recreate, what he's doing, what his professor's doing. So this would be my number one as far as learning it from a professional in a real world setting in front of a massive auditorium. So he's doing it live. This ain't recorded. Well, it is recorded, but he's doing it live in front of an audience. So he's rehearsed this so many times. So he's also got out any inefficiencies. That's another very important thing. So he's wormed out any inefficiencies because he's doing this live in front of a large crowd at a music college.
His that Guildhall video on Final Cut Pro 10, it was one of the best that I've ever seen produced. They're just really, really high quality content. So if they have any subject, regardless of what it is, and you want that, take a shot at it. Next question.
Chirag Cheetah from Dallas, Texas. Using a Flow 8 for sports commentary, any settings I need to set to make sure the audio is not blown out when a commentator gets too excited?
This one goes to Karl.
So yeah, there are two settings you kind of want to look at. So number one would be in the actual channel itself. So I'm on channel 1 at the myself. So it'd be the compressor. So down here in the bottom left, you have a compressor. So you can put the compressor on. So that'll stop them from being overexcited or compress them down. But then the most important one you want to do is on your main output, and that's your limiter. So you can make sure that it doesn't go over any broadcast settings or anything you don't want to do, so you're not going to blow anyone's ears. So with the compressor, you can get them into a narrow range. And then with the limiter, so when I start talking, you see the limiter's kicking in as I'm talking, because I brought limiter quite aggressive there. So as I'm talking, the limiter will kick in. So if they get really excited, you'll see the limiter kicking in, and it acts like it's a hard brick wall compressor. So it's like a double compressor, just to make sure, even though the compressor may not catch them, the limiter will. So that's the best way to do it.
This can be applied to anything. I will also say the newest machines that do recording in 32-bit float, it's almost impossible to clip things in them because they have such a wide dynamic range in them. But I'd follow Karl's advice and you'll be in good shape. Next question.
Chris Widener, Lafayette, Indiana. Why do drones have such weird pre-programmed modes? For example, asteroid. The aircraft flies backward and upward, takes several photos, and it flies back to the starting point. For the new Mini 3 from DJI.
Does anybody use any of those enough? I've never run across that, but I don't fly drones typically. It looks like we might not have the right panel to do that. When you run into one of those, well, Chris Fenwick has some thoughts on it.
So, Chris, the deal is a lot of times things are programmed by programmers, and they're not done by like real life, humans that actually do this for a living. I will say that there are some pre-programmed things that are super cool, and I think we talked about this in Vegas. My favorite one in the DJI world, and I don't know if it's still a thing, but basically you fly the drone over a thing that you want to circle, and then you hit some sort of a marker on your controller, and then you fly it back whatever distance you want, and then you tilt the camera where you want, and then you enter in a duration, and you say go, and it'll do just a circle, a perfect circle around that thing, pointing at the thing that you initially were flying over. So, I mean, some of them are useful, but some of them are just, we can, doesn't mean we should.
Mitchell Hill.
Whatever you do, avoid the Fenwick setting.
Next question.
Next question from Albie Lopez in San Antonio, Texas. Can Mr. Fenwick explain how he records high-quality Zoom interviews with the dock?
This the one you've been waiting for, Chris? You didn't even raise your hand.
Yeah, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Okay. Oh, hold on. Let me raise my hand. Sorry, back-end team. So, yeah, the thing about this, Albie, is it's not just the thing, the dock. The dock just lets you get a signal out of the computer. The real difficult part, it's gotten much easier, and I will say that everything I am about to tell you I learned from Guy. You have to get an HD account from Zoom. And there's three things I'm going to tell you. First off, you're not going to have super high quality when you just get a free account. So you're going to have to get a pro account. When you get a pro account, step 2 is you can get a Facebook portal. I can't show you. You can get a Facebook portal, and if you enter a meeting with a Facebook portal, it'll bump your quality up to 720p. I believe this is still the case. To get 1080p, you're gonna have to develop a relationship with a Zoom sales rep. you may be able to sweet talk them into saying, hey, come on, give me HD. But if you don't have social skills, like me, it'll cost you a lot more. What I had to do is I had to buy 10 Pro accounts. So the difference between the entry level account at $15 a month and the Pro account, it's $15 for this one, $20 for this one. You go, oh, easy. But in order to get the 1080p, you have to buy 10 licenses at $20 a piece. We have a small business. As it turns out, we burned through our 20 accounts by assigning them to all of our employees. And basically, you can just say, oh, John, you have an account here. Let me connect my license to the account that you already have established. But that's the trick to getting 1080p out of Zoom, is you have to pay for it. You have to get, you then will probably have to write a letter saying, hey, it's me. I really want this. And you may have to kind of petition them a little, say, give them an example of the type of stuff you do and why you want to make Zoom look better. That's the key phrase. And then once they bestow it upon you, you then actually have to go and figure out how to turn it on. And that's, it's doable, but it was a headache for me.
Mitch Hill's next.
Occasionally, they do offer a minimum of 5 instead of 10 licenses, which will save you a few dollars.
Quite a few.
Jeffrey Powers also wants to weigh in on this.
And keep in mind, going through the boxes, I'll go through the box and I'll put it into my ATEM Mini through the ISO, and that's all that's doing is recording. But got to also remember, it's also both ends. So if they don't have a 1080p camera, you can't get 1080p no matter how much you try on your end.
Oh, that's disappointing. You can't get a 720 camera and get 1080 out of it. Let's move on to the next question.
Next question from Robert Shoji in Los Angeles. What are Karl K's top 5 pieces of music production hardware and why?
Karl, your ball.
So I would say a Mac Mini to start with, maybe a Mac Studio with GarageBand. Learn GarageBand first before you go over to Logic. So if you can understand, you may outgrow GarageBand in 2 weeks, but do learn GarageBand first because that language does cross over to Logic. So I would say like a Mac with Logic. But yeah, go through GarageBand. So that'll be number 1 in a modern world. Like I own a tape machine here, but I'm going to tell you use Logic. Next would be something that can create music. So if you're a musician yourself, then even just a MIDI controller. So just a MIDI keyboard. So you can play all the synthesizers that are in Logic and in GarageBand and third-party ones. Like you can get through Contact, and you can play software synths, you can play sound libraries. So these are sampled instruments like pianos and strings and that. So a good controller, which I would say a Novation. Personally, Novation, I own Roland ones, but I own Roland because they have system exclusive built into them, which is not found in many other ones. But Novation, the SL series, you can get the 49 or the 60, 61. That's 2 things. Another thing would be a drum machine of some sort. Now, I would say get a hardware drum machine. So there's Arturia, but the reason why is if you're not a drummer yourself, then drums. But if you're not a drummer, you want something that can actually, I do have a drum kit. I have a Roland drum kit here, but I also have drum machines as well. I have a Roland drum machine and Roland drum kit. I enjoy playing the drum kit because it actually teaches me a lot more about what I'm going to do with the drum machine. So kind of, it's much easier to learn on the drum kit what I want to do on drum machine because I can just play it out. But yeah, I'd say some rhythm machine. I would strongly suggest a good quality microphone. So I personally like the Behringer B2 Pros. They will pick up everything in the room, literally everything. They'll hear your fridge turning on 2 rooms over. So, but it's a very high quality condenser microphone. It's essentially Behringer's version of the U87. They're on like the 6th or 7th version now, so they do revisions, but that's a good quality one that's not expensive. If you've got the money, just buy U87. Avoid tube, because you will get, tube has a quality, a noise to it, but avoid tube if you're starting out. Always start with a solid state. So even if you've got lots of money, U87 is where you want to start, or a clone of the U87, which are a lot of clones. And then probably the last thing, so you've got, well, actually, no, that'd be 3, that'd be 4. So the last one after a good microphone would be some form of hardware mixer. Now, the Flow 8 is what we talk about a lot on the show, but a hardware mixer. Now, you can have an analog mixer with a built-in USB interface. So essentially it's analog all the way through, and it just does a digital part at the end and spits it out to the computer. That's like the Tascam Model 24, something like that. Or you can do a full digital. You could do like a Behringer X32, but that's not really the highest quality for music production. It's really good for AV production. But I would suggest like an analog mixer and maybe a really good quality audio interface. So you can get yourself like an Apollo, you can get yourself an SSL. So these are really high quality ones. If you want to keep it budgeted, Behringer does make a couple of high-end audio interfaces. So they're the 404 HD and the 402 or the 204 HD. They're the higher end ones, but they're probably it. Anything else from Behringer is middle of the road. Let's just say middle of the road at best, and some of them are really cheap if you're getting down to $40 ones. The Flow 8 would be a middle of the road because it doesn't do high resolution. It does 48 and does 48K. So it's great for production, but not great for maybe music recording or sampling if you want to sample an instrument. Avoid gas. So avoid gear acquisition syndrome. And this is where Logic can help you out a lot, because a lot of the things you'll find in Logic, but I do really think you do need a rhythm machine of some sort. Be an electronic drum kit, an analog drum kit, but then you need a lot of mics. That's a whole other thing. Or a drum machine. Or even a sequencer that has drum machine built into it. So a lot of Scandinavian companies make these too. But I do really suggest that a physical rhythm machine of some sort is really important, and a good quality mic. Now, a dynamic mic is like a Shure dynamic mics as well. But if you're going to be doing music production, I'd suggest a condenser mic in a quiet room.
Okay, so we're at about Jeffrey Powers wants to sneak in, and then we've got about 2 minutes per question for the rest of the questions coming. Jeffrey, take it away.
The only thing I'll add to it, because Karl did it perfectly. The only thing I'll add is make sure that you get MIDI that does MIDI pass through. So MIDI in, MIDI out. That way you can join some of these things. Karl was talking about using a Roland drum machine, and then of course a regular drum set. You could actually put those two together and then record into the machine. Same thing with the mixer. You can also have MIDI on there. And the cool thing about that is you can change your patches, and then everything changes on all the other devices.
Fair enough. Let's move on to the next question.
David Brady from New York, New York. My new camera at home is a Zcam E1, but the iris is measured in degrees. What is this wizardry, and how does it translate to the analog world?
And it looks like Guy Cochran's going to start us off.
Yeah, I have the brother to that camera. This is the Zcam E2, and what you're dealing with is it's not actually your iris, it's your shutter. So you must have gone in here into your shutter controls and changed the shutter operation to angle. And normally what you're used to seeing is speed. So shutter speed now is at 1/60th, whereas if you would have had it on shutter angle, here was that weird wizardry was probably, all this. So typically you're at 180 degrees would be a normal look. Anything faster is going to give you, or greater is going to give you a blurry look. So for creative control, you might want to use those, but most people are with the rule of thumb is to have it on the normal shutter speed, and then in my instance I'm shooting at 30 frames a second, so it's double that, so it's 60. If I was shooting at 24, it would be 1/48. So there's the answer to your question.
Fair enough. And Karl has some thoughts.
Yeah, so exactly what Guy said. So essentially the shutter is actually, in film cameras, you actually had a mirror that span inside. And the mirror would be generally 180 degrees with some cameras, and some were adjustable, like in the Panaflex cameras. So your 180 degrees means that half the time the mirror covering the frame and the other half the time light is hitting the frame. So if you're running at 30 frames a second, half the time, so that's 1/60th of a second. So it's kind of an easy way to kind of figure it out, but there is a little bit of extra mathematics to do there. So back in the old film days, it was pretty straightforward. But if you're used to shutter speed, then you just change the setting to shutter speed rather than shutter angle and be less confused.
Fair enough. Next question, please.
And it's coming to you from Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, in discussions about the response to the current crisis, machine learning has been frequently mentioned. What software tools are most frequently used to develop machine learning data analysis applications?
That's a weighty question. Machine learning and AI are some of the hottest topics out there in the world. And I'll be honest with you, even after reading about them for a significant amount of time, the nexus between the two, where machine learning ends and artificial intelligence takes over, I am opaque about at best. Let's listen to John Preto a little bit on it and how he feels.
There's a fantastic AI podcast, Lex Friedman, who's a teacher at MIT on artificial intelligence. It's called the AI podcast, and he has the top guys in the world on there about all things related to AI, deep learning, cognition. It is fantastic.
Yeah, this is an oncoming field. The people who are really experts at this are writing their own ticket out there because everybody understands that these techniques built into some kind of heuristic system that helps software do its job more efficiently is a big deal out there as we get bigger and bigger data sets. Chris, do you have a thought?
Yeah, I don't believe in AI. When Amazon stops feeding me ads for something I've already bought, I'll believe they're getting closer, but it's as ridiculous.
Well, artificial child intelligence. Anyway, yeah, regardless of whether you like it or not, it is coming. And I think a lot of what you get fed these days are trying to, do the big data analysis of everyone's behavior. And this is billions of people, and try to figure out how to increase their response rate. It's going to be something we'll be talking about, I think, for the rest of the time. We're all on technology, but probably beyond the scope of getting it solved or understood. Sorry, Douglas, if that's a little less than an answer, but the big topics, and keep asking questions about them. And as the panel changes, more people have more thoughts on this. Let's go to the next question.
Jonas Duttel from Stuttgart. Has anyone seen the new Reporter plugin for the Mix Pre? Sounds amazing for its kits to send out.
Chris Fenwick wants to talk about that.
Yeah, Sound Devices has used artificial intelligence to figure out that if they make up a new feature, they can charge you an extra $30. So here's the thing. The Reporter plugin, literally they're charging you $30 to turn off the ability to change settings on the Mix Pre. So the idea is, as we all know, Mix Pre's are a little difficult to set up unless you have a Mickey. And so you set it up, and it's really easy to mess it up. So using artificial intelligence, they have figured that they can charge you an extra $30 to lock off the thing. I got to say, I mean, I love the Mix 3, and I know the guy has been here, but this is just a ridiculous charge. They should just make this a feature. It's silly.
And so that is that. We're going to move on to the next question.
Josh Kaufman from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've retrofitted a standard lighting grid into a ring light. Works great. But is there a less hacky way to do this? I thought about making a custom grid, but I wouldn't if a better option exists.
And Karl's going to start us off on this. Karl?
So there is one way of doing it. So you can actually get one of these. So these are actually made for a beauty dish, but as you can see, they're actually a honeycomb system. And because they're a honeycomb system, you can actually do quite a lot with them. So, and as you can see, it's quite cheap. So this one's about 20 inches, which would be about the same width, same diameter as a ring light. And so this is, I believe it's a 40 degrees, maybe 60 degree honeycomb. So this will give you the same thing, but it's much more elegant. It's much more thin than using a fabric one on a ring light. Now it's got to, of course, it's going to have a honeycomb in the center that you're not going to be using. But it is an elegant solution that will fit most ring lights. There is a 16-inch version, so if you even have a smaller one, but this one, I believe, because most ring lights I know of are about 19 to 20 inches, and this one here is around 20 inches. So this would be my choice would be running this on top of a ring light if you want a kind of a grid effect, if you want a kind of a honeycomb effect coming off your ring light to give you a bit more control over where that light goes.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, we've sold tens of thousands of ring lights, and I did a lot of work bringing them to market with using our spectrometer to take a look at output, and had lots of beta test units. And one of the things that we found when we got to the A grade, I'd love to see what yours look like, is just cost, and because it can be expensive to use these things without soaking up too much light. So that's the thing with these fabric or metal, because basically what you're doing is you're slicing up the light and in order to get that straighter angle. So for those of you that don't know, an egg crate helps you shape the light so that it goes in the direction that you want. But unfortunately, it'll soak up to half of that light or more. So you need a ring light that would output quite a bit to be able to get the exposure that you want. So there's a little bit of a danger, but I'd love to see what you've come up with and see if we could pair something with one of the ring lights that we import from overseas, which are hard to get right now.
Fun to try. I have to say that this seems like a weird idea to me, and here's why. The original purpose of a ring light is that it was a beauty light, and the thing that it does best, if you have a relatively large ring, let's imagine that my hands are the output of a ring, and the light is coming from surrounding something like a face, it is very beneficial to the face because the light from this side of the ring are hitting my wrinkles from one direction. The light from the other side of the ring are hitting that same wrinkle from the other direction, and the wrinkles kind of go away. They were originally a makeup artist's beauty light to provide an incredibly soft, wide field of lights that is very flattering to a face. Now, a grid, as Guy was just discussing, does exactly the opposite. It tries to limit light by having a thick box, a series of thick boxes around the lights, which means that the light from one side of the light is not getting to the subject, it's being constrained. So it seems like those two things are odd. Now, I know a lot of people who use ring lights at distance, and so it becomes more like just another point source. One of the most interesting factors of ring lights is the catch lights that you get in people's eyes from them. So the ring light close adds that circular highlight in an iris. A ring light at distance can look like just any other light source because it's far. So just understand these dimensions of using lights for video, and hopefully it'll help you find a solution that works best for you. Let's move on. I'm over talking this.
Alan Scott from Fredericton, Canada. What happened to the video yesterday when it was stuck?
There is a reply from Dennis Champion Walker in answer to Alan Scott's questions about yesterday's lack of cutting for a period. The technical director interface stopped responding for a time. We believe there was an issue with one of the software tools we used in Office Hours 2.0's Beast, and it's something we're currently investigating. So that's the response we got from that question from yesterday. And now I'm behind. Oh, we got one more to do, so let's just knock it out, and then we'll have succeeded in getting to everything.
Here it goes from Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana. According to a survey of 5,616 U.S. adults conducted by Verizon and Publix Media, more than 80% indicated they are more likely to watch an entire video when captions are available. What is the best approach to live captions on YouTube?
Well, since nobody raised their hand, I'll note that captioning has really gone through a revolution. There are all sorts of systems, most of them built in today's nonlinear editors, that allow you to literally send the audio track out to a service. It will turn that audio track into text, and you can bring those files back in and make them caption friendly in these nonlinear editing systems so that it will do standard captions and various other kinds of captions, as well as the standard turn on and off on your TV captions. So captioning has gone a long way. I do believe that there are the Americans with Disabilities Act, anything you broadcast really must have captions. They're asked for a lot, and the processes for making them are there. I try to do captions on all my work because in a lot of circumstances, I'll see that video being played back in a noisy environment, and they turn on the captions just to allow the audience more accessibility to what's being said in the video when it's not being heard. But captions are a big deal now, and they're built into a lot of things that they weren't built into before. So I guess that takes us to the end. I'm sorry I'm a minute over, but thank you, one and all. Thank you for watching through the course of today. I hope you had a good time in the show. We certainly had a good time trying to help you do that. Remember, After Hours starts right after the show, and just my personal thanks to all the panelists who showed up and helped make this possible. It was fabulous to have. It's always fabulous to have such an amazing brain trust here making this show what it is. So thank you, and we'll take off, roll the credits, and the group can decide whether or not they want to whisper through them. Bye. See you tomorrow.
It's a group decision. It's a group decision. I feel so much better.
That's the sound of Mitchell's sonic screwdriver for those of you who are really confused.
My vertebra was a little out of line. Thank you. I had a thing in my neck. You took care of it. That was amazing.
Great job, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Karl. I owe you so much coffee. Guy, I'll make reservations for Saturday. Oh, Friday. Friday. Yeah.
I think we might be off the air.